The episode starts with a guy named James waking up to his phone ringing. When he comes to his senses, he realizes he slept next to Aileen, his friend's sister. He gets ready, heads out, meets his friends, and while he's at school, his twin sister Lydia sends him a message. She looks upset and crying, saying she messed up big time. We learn that James is super rich and goes to the most elite school in the country. While he's hanging out with his friends, Lydia shows up completely distressed. James freaks out and asks what happened. She tells him someone saw her with Mr. Sutton, her teacher, because she's secretly in a relationship with him. She's terrified the girl who saw them will expose her. The girl's name is Ruby. Then the story jumps back 4 hours. Ruby is on her way to school, riding the bus. She sees a pregnant woman standing, so she gives her her seat. We learn Ruby is from a poor family, and her dream is to get into Oxford. She worked hard to get a scholarship to this rich kid's only school. Because of that, she avoids drama at all costs. She doesn't want anything to ruin her future. At school, she meets her friend Lynn, who used to be rich before her family went broke. Ruby goes to philosophy class with Mr. Sutton. He asks about Descartes. Lydia answers but gets it wrong, and Ruby corrects her. Sutton is impressed with Ruby's intelligence, which annoys Lydia. After class, Ruby forgets to take her recommendation letter from Sutton. She rushes back to his office and accidentally sees him kissing Lydia. Shocked, she drops all her papers. Sutton tries to explain, but Ruby refuses to listen and storms off. Lydia panics and calls her brother. James arrives at school for the student meeting. When they see him, everyone is shocked. He pulls Ruby aside and asks her to talk. He begs her to forget what she saw in Sutton's office. Ruby snaps at him, calls him the worst person she's ever met, and mocks his money. James tries to offer her cash, since she clearly needs a new bag. But Ruby throws it on the ground and walks away. She later goes to work. We find out she studies and works at the same time to help her paralyzed father and save up for a new wheelchair. After getting paid, she meets her sister Amber and they go home. They cook with their dad and enjoy the evening, but Ruby gets sad when she sees her father sleeping downstairs since his wheelchair broke. She transfers the money she earned to finally save enough for a new one. The next day at school, she sees Sutton and asks for her recommendation letter. He says he already wrote it and everything in it is true. She tells him she doesn't care about his personal life, but if the scandal comes out, her letter will be useless. She takes her papers and says she'll find someone else, maybe even the principal. Meanwhile, she keeps quiet about what she saw, even from Lynn. Ruby runs into James again. He asks what she wants from his family and tells her to name her price. She refuses the money again. He assumes she wants a relationship with him, and she threatens to kill him if he gets near her. Then she rushes to the game where the principal will be. James is the team captain and plays really well, helping them win, until his friend Lester ruins the match by attacking someone from the other team. Afterward, Lester talks to Ruby, and James gets jealous seeing them together and even slips and falls. Ruby finally gets a moment with the principal and asks him to write her recommendation letter. He says he hasn't seen her participate in school activities for 2 years. She quickly claims she's head of the events committee. He agrees, but only if she successfully organizes the upcoming welcome party for the new students. She gets excited, until James shows up again and mocks her poverty, saying she'll never fit in with people like him. She heads home sad, while James and Lydia spend time with their family. Meanwhile, Ruby keeps working non-stop to prepare the welcome party. She does an amazing job, and the principal praises her, saying this is exactly what he wanted. But before he finishes talking, weird music starts playing and male strippers show up, completely ruining the event. Turns out this was all James's doing. Ruby is devastated, and James tells her that now no one will ever believe her, even if she decides to talk about his sister. At that moment, the principal calls them to his office. He finds out James is the one who ruined the party, so he bans him from the club. He also scolds Ruby and tells her he won't write her recommendation letter anymore. Then he asks if something is going on between her and James. James panics, afraid Ruby might expose his sister, but she surprises him by staying quiet. She refuses to say anything. Ruby then asks the principal to give her another chance and let her organize the charity event. She promises nothing like this will happen again. The principal agrees and decides to put James on her team so he can make up for what he did. He tells them they have to fix their mess. Both of them are shocked and immediately start arguing in front of him, so he kicks them out of his office. Ruby challenges James, saying she'll pull off the event and he can't stop her from getting into the university she wants. James accepts the challenge. The story jumps back to James as a little kid playing with his dad. His dad pretends he's losing, then beats James, and tells him that the strong one decides what happens next. He even snatches the last piece of candy from James and eats it. They laugh and keep playing. Then we jump back to the present, where James has grown up and become exactly like his father. Meanwhile, Ruby is with her team preparing for the charity event. She's happy James isn't at the meeting, saying the farther he stays, the better. Then we cut to James training with his team, and he's shocked when the coach kicks him out. He learns he's not allowed to play for the rest of the year. James gets angry and reminds him that his father funds the school. The coach tells him the decision came from his father himself. This makes James even more upset. Lydia tries to calm him and tells him to talk to their dad, but James says he'll go back to the club, and when he sees Ruby there, he'll make her regret ever coming to this school. His sister begs him to leave Ruby alone because she kept their secret, but James refuses to let Ruby win and comes up with a whole new idea for the event. He tells the team the party should be Victorian-themed. Everyone on the team loves the idea except Ruby, but she ends up agreeing because the majority voted for it. Ruby gets stressed because she doesn't know how to get a Victorian-style dress for the party poster. Lynn suggests she talk to James, since his family's company is one of the oldest fashion brands in England. Ruby goes to him and asks if his father can lend them clothes for the event. James refuses to help and sarcastically tells her she's such a great leader, she'll figure it out. Then he walks away. Ruby gets frustrated and stuck until she suddenly gets an idea. She asks her sister Amber to sew the dress since she's good with clothes. Amber refuses at first, but eventually agrees. The next day, James goes running with his father and beats him in the race. Then he asks his dad to let him back on the team. His dad tells him he's too busy preparing to welcome a new investor and starts criticizing the sport James plays. He refuses to let him return to the club, no matter how much James begs. James feels crushed and helpless. Meanwhile, Ruby and Amber finish, making the dress in record time. Ruby loves how it turned out, and Amber tells her to iron it because she's exhausted after working long hours. At the same time, James is at the company meeting with his family. James presents the new collection at the company meeting, and at the same time we see Lydia sitting there repeating everything he says, looking sad. She's upset because she's the one who actually wrote his speech. We find out the whole new collection was Lydia's work. She loves fashion and is talented at it. But their dad uses her creativity to make James look good so he can take over the company one day, even though he doesn't care about it at all. After the meeting, James sees the photos of Ruby's dress that she sent to the group chat. He gets annoyed that she managed to pull it off and figure things out without him. He goes to the sewing machine she used and messes with it. Meanwhile, Ruby gets distracted by messages he keeps sending her and forgets the dress on the ironing board. It burns. She shows her sister the ruined dress, crying, but Amber tries to cheer her up and they end up laughing a little, though Ruby stays stressed because she has no idea how to fix things. The next day at school, the new teacher, Peppa, arrives to help them with their Oxford applications. She asks whether their actions were rational, which leads to another fight between James and Ruby. He insults her for being poor, saying no one will care about her if she doesn't have money. Ruby snaps back and tells him he only understands money because that's all he's ever known. She says he sees nothing else as important, asks if he wants to spend his whole life only thinking about money, a fortune he didn't even earn himself. She says his family name, his inheritance, and even his childish pranks just show he's empty on the inside. And that's why nobody will ever care about him unless they want his money. James is stunned and can't say a word. He walks away. Ruby instantly feels guilty because she knows she went too far. After school, Lydia meets with Sutton. He tells her they need to break up. They talk for a bit, but Sutton knows her parents would never accept him. He tells her he doesn't want her to lose the company because of him, especially since she's talented and created the new collection. He reassures her that her father won't abandon her because he's a smart businessman. He wouldn't waste a talent like hers. Lydia still leaves heartbroken. Meanwhile, Ruby is at home desperately trying to find a solution for the ruined dress. She also feels bad about what she said to James, but she can't bring herself to apologize. Her dad encourages her, though. The next day at school, she finally approaches James and apologizes, telling him her behavior wasn't acceptable, especially since she doesn't know what he's going through. James softens a bit when she apologizes. He asks about the dress, and she admits it's burned, and there probably won't be a poster for the event. James is touched, and we see him starting to like her. He keeps thinking about her even after he gets home. He sits down to draw, but his dad interrupts and tells him to get ready, they're going out. Lydia asks if she can come, but her father refuses. James smiles, thinking maybe his dad wants to spend time with him, but the truth is his dad is just using him. He wants James to get closer to Aileen, the daughter of a very wealthy businessman who plans to invest in their company. Basically, he's planning for James to marry Aileen. While all this is happening, James can't stop thinking about Ruby. He decides to text her and tells her to get ready because she's coming with him to London. They're going to fix the dress. A driver pulls up outside Ruby's house, and she can't believe what's happening. She rushes to get ready and looks for something to wear. When she comes downstairs, she finds her mom talking to James's driver, who tells her when they'll be back. Her mom learns Ruby is going to London for the event preparations, agrees to it, and tells her to take care. Ruby gets in the car with James and thanks him for taking her. He replies that he didn't do anything, he just needs to get the dress photographed and come back. Ruby smiles when she realizes his family used to make suits for the British royal family. James gets a bit embarrassed. James keeps joking with Ruby, telling her everything people say about him is true, and that she could even meet him if she just bows respectfully. Ruby laughs when she realizes he's messing with her. Then she asks him about the rumors, like him eating caviar for breakfast or showering in champagne. He tells her none of that is true, mostly because he doesn't even like caviar. James then says there aren't any rumors about her, and Ruby replies that she prefers staying unnoticed anyway. He asks her to tell him something nobody else knows, so she admits that no one in her family ever went to university. She still can't believe she got the scholarship and made it into their school, and ever since then her dream has been to get into Oxford. James is genuinely impressed by how passionate she is. She notices his sketchbook and praises his drawing. They finally reach his family's company, and Ruby is amazed by all the dresses. James tells her to try on the one she likes, and she agrees, but only if he wears a suit too. He agrees, and he's clearly stunned when he sees her in the dress. They take pictures together, and Ruby can't stop staring at herself in the mirror. James starts getting close to her, but right at that moment his family arrives. Ruby greets his father politely and introduces herself, but Mortimer treats her terribly. He belittles her and says the dress she's wearing doesn't suit her, that it's fit for a queen, not her. James pretends nothing is wrong and makes excuses about being late to his meeting. Ruby feels humiliated, especially because James just stays silent. She quickly changes and leaves. She sits in the car with the driver and tells him to drop her at the train station. Then she goes home, locks herself in her room, and doesn't talk to anyone the whole day. The next day her family tries to ask what happened, but she refuses to say anything. She heads to school, and suddenly everyone is staring at her. She finds out James posted their picture, and she confronts him angrily. He tells her she looked beautiful, but she insists she works hard to stay invisible, and now he's ruined that. James gets upset when she says everything between them will go back to how it was before. She runs to the bathroom, breaking down. A girl tries to check on her, but Ruby snaps and says she wouldn't even have talked to her if she were still poor. In class, Peppa asks Ruby to stand up and explain why she wants to go to Oxford. Ruby tries, but she remembers James, loses focus, and leaves the room. When she gets home, she finds her father crying because he dropped the food and couldn't pick it up. He explains he was trying to bake a cake for his wedding anniversary. Ruby helps him while crying. James then comes over trying to defend himself. He explains everything that happened was because of his father, and he was ashamed of himself. That's why he posted the picture. He thinks she's special and wanted people to see her. Ruby softens a bit when he says he doesn't want things to go back to how they were. He invites her to his friend's party and asks her to come with him. She refuses at first, saying she doesn't belong in his world. But she brightens up when James gives her the dress she tried on as a gift and asks her to wear it to the party. Meanwhile, his father tells him to stay away from Ruby because she's not their level and wouldn't fit into their lifestyle. James asks him how he even reached that level in the first place. It turns out James's father wasn't always rich. He only rose because he married James's mother, who came from a wealthy family. Mortimer insists he worked hard to build the company and protect the family name. James argues that Lydia is more talented than him and should be the one running the company, but his father dismisses her as too weak. At school, Lynn overhears some girls mocking Ruby and defends her, telling them money can disappear at any moment. Ruby later enters the lab and apologizes to Lynn, who forgives her instantly. Lynn's other friend encourages her to go to the party with Ruby. At the party, James is thrilled when he sees Ruby walk in, just as Lydia, drunk, spots her too. Lydia gets upset when she realizes James invited Ruby and threatens that she'll destroy her if she breaks James's heart. When Lydia leaves, Ruby and James decide to forget everything and enjoy the night. Everyone dances and has fun. Lynn gets jealous, spills juice on Ruby on purpose, and gets even more annoyed when James takes Ruby and walks off with her. Then one of James's friends jokes around and pushes Ruby into the pool. James panics when he sees her drowning and jumps in immediately. Everyone is shocked when he pulls her out, and she's shaking and terrified. James takes her to the car to calm her down, and Ruby tells him what happened when she was little, how she nearly drowned in the sea and her dad jumped after her, but a boat suddenly appeared and hit him, which is why he's now disabled. She cries, saying it was her fault. James holds her until she falls asleep in his arms. When she wakes up, she leans closer about to kiss him, but suddenly sees all their friends filming and laughing. Ruby jolts awake, realizing it was all a nightmare. She texts James thanking him for everything, while he's also thinking about her and how he feels. They talk the whole car ride until Ruby gets to school, where she finds him waiting for her. When they walk in together, everyone stares, and Ruby freezes, so James tells her to copy what he does. James sees his team practicing and looks sad. Meanwhile, Lydia gets a text from Lynn asking if James and Ruby were actually dating. Then Mortimer shows up asking Lydia to have breakfast with him. He tells her the new clothing collection never would have existed without her creativity. But she doesn't manage to do anything because she suddenly realizes her father is using her again. He wants her to write the speech her brother will give in front of the press. He also tells her to stay focused on him and keep her eyes on him at all times. When Lydia gets to school, she talks to James, who reassures her that everything is under control. Lydia warns him that their father will handle things his way if he finds out anything, but James tells her not to worry. He starts thinking about how Ruby is nothing like Sutton. James helps Ruby with the party preparations, and he's surprised when he learns her birthday is on the same day. He promises her he'll be there exactly on time, and that he'll be the first one to dance with her. Meanwhile, Ruby discovers someone on the team bought a huge amount of birds without slaughtering them first, so she tells everyone to place them somewhere with more fresh air this year. Lydia sees Sutton talking to Peppa and gets jealous, asking if he's with her now and if it was that easy for him. He looks miserable because he lost the love of his life. Sutton panics at the idea that someone might see them. Lydia asks him to run away with her, but he refuses and tells her he can't do that. We then see James practicing the speech he's supposed to give to the press. He freaks out when he finds out the press conference is scheduled at the same time as Ruby's party. His father walks in, reminding him to choose between his little crush he'll forget in 2 years and his family. Meanwhile, Ruby is at home celebrating her birthday with her family. She gets emotional opening her gifts, especially James's. He gives her a new bag with the sketch he drew for her inside. James eats breakfast with Lydia and tells her she was right. He always thought he could control his life, but it's not working, and he feels like he's being treated unfairly. Lydia tells him he doesn't know what unfair even means, because their father only talks to her when he wants to use her. Now her brother's face will be on the project she worked on for years, and on top of that, the guy she loved is in love with someone else. She tells James he has no idea what it feels like to be someone's backup option. James feels bad but tries to joke with her. Ruby texts James, telling him that all the birds flew out around the school. He rushes over and helps her gather them back into the cages. She thanks him again for the gift and feels sad when she realizes he might not attend the party. James tells her he doesn't want to go to the press conference or even go to Oxford. He feels like everything he does is against his will. Ruby asks him what he wants to do. Her words get stuck in his mind, but one of the students interrupts them. Ruby grabs the moment, goes to the principal, and asks him to put James back on the team if the party turns out well, since James worked so hard helping her. She's thrilled when the principal agrees and gives her the recommendation letter. On the way to the conference, James keeps rehearsing his speech so he doesn't forget, but he still messes it up. Lydia corrects his mistakes and realizes he memorized her writing. She hands him the notes she wrote for him. They both get the same idea at the same time. James says they should let their competitor think he's one step away from winning. It's a trick his father taught him when he was young. James tells the driver to change the route. Meanwhile, Ruby is getting ready, and her family is amazed at how stunning she looks in the dress. She heads to the party, nervous, but Lynn reassures her that everything is perfect. Ruby smiles and tries to enjoy the moment. James arrives at the party. It turns out he sent Lydia to the press conference so she could present her project, while he came to be with Ruby. Mortimer is shocked when he sees Lydia standing in front of the cameras, claiming her rightful place, just like James claimed his at the party. At the party, James and Ruby dance. She tells him she convinced the principal to let him back on the team, and he leans in to kiss her right as the power cuts out. Ruby panics, but James manages to fix it quickly. She tells him she enjoyed working with him, but he says it sounds like she's saying goodbye. Suddenly his father appears. Both James and Ruby freeze. Mortimer insults Ruby, saying he would have fired her if the principal hadn't intervened, accusing her of letting things get out of control. Ruby leaves immediately, but then she discovers Mortimer is lying. Nothing went wrong at all. Sutton finds Lydia breaking down. Mortimer orders both his kids to go home. Ruby succeeds in getting her recommendation letter after the party goes well, and she finds out the principal already sent the original copy to the university, making her unbelievably happy. Back home, Mortimer yells at his children. Lydia breaks down when he belittles her again. She tells him she knows everything about the production line, but he responds that all she does is ruin things, and that she's always wanted to be at the top without understanding how much discipline it requires. Lydia argues the press conference wouldn't have existed without her. Then he yells at James, calling him a lovesick fool and saying the whole family counted on him. James stays silent. Meanwhile, Ruby sits with Sutton and thanks him for being the first person at school who believed in her. Sutton gets emotional when she says he's her role model because he got into Oxford despite coming from a small village. She promises she won't give up and will stay committed to her dream. Back at home, Mortimer keeps trying to provoke James, but James still refuses to respond, until he realizes his father knows everything about Ruby and her family. Mortimer keeps insulting her until James snaps and tells him to shut up. Mortimer raises his hand to hit him, but the driver steps in and stops him. Mortimer threatens James, saying he'll destroy Ruby, prevent her from getting into university, and ruin her family if James doesn't stay away from her. The next day, Ruby texts James, but he doesn't reply. She gets worried because he hasn't spoken to her since he went home with his father. She leaves the house in a rush and forgets to hide the money box she's been saving. Meanwhile, James returns to school and starts acting normally with his friends again. They ask Alistair if he's okay, and he tells James that he's in terrible shape. Sutton tries to talk to Lydia after seeing her at the party, asking what happened, but she doesn't want to speak. Still, Sutton won't leave her alone. He asks her to run away with him, telling her she can continue her studies and he'll work somewhere else. She keeps questioning what made him change his mind. Sutton tells her it's because he loves her. Lydia gets emotional and agrees. At that moment, Ruby sees James at school. She freezes when he walks right past her without saying a word. Everyone around them is watching, and she can't focus in class, so she asks to leave. She goes to the field to confront James. She asks what happened, why he is ignoring her, and whether his plan was to make her fall for him so she would talk to the principal and get him back on the team. But then she notices the injury on his face and asks if his father did that to him. James tries to push her away and hurts her feelings, telling her someone refined like him would never care about someone poor and insignificant like her. He says it's time for everything to go back to how it originally was. Ruby walks away crying and keeps crying the whole way home. After work, she returns home and opens her savings box. She's been saving money to buy her father a wheelchair. He tells her he doesn't need her money, but she insists they're a family and should help each other. Her father refuses to let her tire herself out working while studying. He feels hurt when she says it's the only thing she can do to make up for what happened to him. She goes to her room crying. Her sister follows her to comfort her. Meanwhile, James gets drunk at a party and returns home barely able to stand. His mother helps him to his room. James asks her if she ever wished she were someone else, or if she ever felt unhappy. She tells him she once had a miserable love story, and that everyone reaches a point in life where they finally understand themselves and stop chasing things that aren't meant for them. He asks about his father. She tells him his father chose a different path from hers, and that sometimes people hurt each other despite love. James starts crying and says letting go is painful. His mother tells him he can endure anything as long as he believes he is doing the right thing. She tells him to sleep and leaves. The next day, Oxford acceptance letters arrive. Ruby gets anxious because hers is late. Sutton reassures her, telling her he has never seen anyone work as hard as she did, and he believes she will be accepted. She just needs to be patient. She thanks him and returns to studying. Aileen approaches Ruby, trying to belittle her out of jealousy because James has been ignoring her. She says everyone knew from the beginning that Ruby's relationship wouldn't last, and she can have James now because he belongs to her. Ruby goes home angry, tries to throw away James's drawing, but can't. She sends the bag he gifted her back with a rude note. Lydia asks James if he's okay. He tries to avoid the topic and asks her to focus on studying. She tells him she's not okay and points out that he never asked how she and Sutton met. James tells her they don't have to share everything. Lydia insists and tells him she and Sutton talked online before they ever met in person, that she didn't even know who he was except that he was a trainee teacher, and she loved him at first sight. But once Sutton started working at her school, they both knew the relationship wouldn't survive. James tells her they're both insecure and unlucky in love. Lydia laughs a little and says everything will be fine. The next day at school, Ruby ignores James and he ignores her. She keeps focusing on her goals. Lydia decides not to run away with Sutton. He waits for her, but she never comes. She treats him formally at school. Ruby apologizes to her father for what she said. He tells her he thought about her words and wants to thank her for helping them all talk about the accident and how it affected them. Ruby cries and says none of it would have happened if she hadn't been careless. Her father tells her it was fate and that he is grateful for every moment of his life, whether he is sitting or standing. Ruby gets a call and goes home to find her acceptance letter. She cries with joy and hugs her family. She starts packing for university. Her sister tells her she fixed the dress and sold it so they could buy their father a wheelchair. At the same time, James packs his bags. His mother enters and gives him his grandfather's watch for good luck, reminding him that everyone in their family studied at Oxford. James becomes upset because he feels pressured. His mother tells him he doesn't realize how lucky he is. He gets to study at one of the best universities and is destined to run a major company one day. James says he wants the chance to figure out who he is and what he truly wants. He reassures her he won't step off the path they set for him. He has no freedom to choose. Lydia discovers she is pregnant and runs to her mother crying. The next day, she and James leave for their university admission exams at the same time Ruby travels for hers. There, Ruby meets Jude, who is responsible for the new students. He offers to help her, but she refuses and continues on her own. She enters the university, full of excitement. When she reaches her room, she's shocked to find James standing right in front of her. His room is across from hers. The next morning, Ruby wakes up excited for her interview. She leaves quickly to avoid meeting James. She walks through the university, feeling like she's finally close to her dream. Jude introduces himself properly. Aileen arrives and greets Ruby. Lydia asks James if he's ready for the interview. He says he's prepared and that they'll both walk in and get accepted immediately. Jude explains to the students what will happen in the interview and tells them not to panic. It's not as difficult as they think. Ruby is still nervous and keeps reviewing her notes. She gets flustered when she sees James enter the waiting room. Jude calls Ruby's name. Suddenly, James grabs her hands and wishes her good luck. She gets even more nervous and quickly walks away. Ruby answers all the questions confidently, and the professors seem impressed. At the same time, James is interviewed and impresses the examiners too. But he gets anxious when he sees a picture of his father. He feels everything he does is for him, not for himself. Ruby finishes and tells Aileen everything that happened. Jude gives the students a break and takes them to the campus bar. James tenses up when he sees Ruby walking in with Jude. He gets jealous. Lydia is with her brother but suddenly feels sick and leaves. Ruby also steps out because she feels flustered by James's presence. On her way back, she bumps into Lydia and asks if she's nervous about the interview. Lydia says the interview doesn't matter. She won't be joining the university anyway. Ruby is shocked. She tells her that she is very smart and accomplished, so she admits she is pregnant. She also tells her that she has never loved anyone as much as she loves Satan, and that this is why she loved the baby and wants to keep it. She encourages Ruby and tells her that the university has programs for mothers, and that she saw her at school and knows how determined she is, and that no one can persevere the way she does. Lydia then tells her that now she understands why her brother can't forget her. Ruby smiles when she realizes that James still loves her, even though he was the one who left her. When she returns to her room, she cannot sleep from overthinking. She hears James coming back to his room and trying to knock on her door, but he backs away at the last moment. Ruby stays awake until morning, afraid she might fail the second interview because she needs strong focus. Alistair sits with James after he finishes his interview and tells him that he failed because he wasn't focused due to the effects of drinking. He then takes him to the waiting hall where James sees Ruby. He wants to sit next to her but hesitates because of Jude, who ends up sitting beside her instead. Jude asks the students if they have any questions about the university, and James tries to embarrass him by asking about his grades and questioning whether he is even qualified to guide them about university life. Ruby cuts him off and says that there are applicants with real questions and asks him to listen to them instead of wasting their time with pointless remarks. James loses his temper when Ruby challenges him and tells him he is afraid of turning into his father, then asks why he is even here if he doesn't want to study at this university. She says everything he does makes people around him feel small because he pushes them away, so no one discovers he is just a coward who prefers to act like a player instead of defending his dreams. Ruby excels in the discussion but feels embarrassed afterward. She leaves the room quickly, and James runs after her. He tells her she is right, that he lies and hides his feelings, but he won't let her judge him unfairly because he only does this because of her. Ruby confronts him and demands clarity because he is driving her crazy. James raises his voice and tells her she doesn't know how much he suffers seeing her and hearing her voice every day. Ruby gets even angrier and says he doesn't know what he wants. James runs after her, comes close and kisses her. They go to her room, but Ruby remembers how he ignored her and the painful things he said. James admits he acted that way because of his father, who thought he changed because of her. He threatened to destroy his life if he didn't stay away from her. Ruby understands why he hid the truth and asks why he didn't tell her earlier. James says he didn't want his father to hurt her. She tells him she's not afraid of his father, but James insists she doesn't know what he's capable of. Ruby doesn't care and asks him not to hide anything from her again. She tells him she will make him a list to help him figure out what he wants, and asks him to tell her the things he loves. James says he loves drawing, Asian food, sports, music, and most of all, her. They go out together, very happy. The day of the final interview comes, and Ruby is ready and prepared. Meanwhile, James leaves the building, deciding not to enroll in the university. Lydia calls her mother and leaves her a message saying she has good news she'll share when she arrives. James drives Ruby to the bus station and says goodbye. Elsewhere, the cat manages to meow for the first time since the accident. James and his sister return home and are shocked when their father tells them about their mother's death from a stroke. He explains he didn't want to ruin their university interviews, which were very important to her. Mort appears sad but won't let grief affect his work, focusing only on the company stock. James breaks down and lashes out at his father for not telling him about his mother's death. The driver restrains him and pulls him away. James leaves the house and goes to Ruby's home. He sees her with her family celebrating her success, all of them happy, so he doesn't walk in. He leaves quietly. Ruby senses his presence but cannot find him. He has decided not to enter her life again.